America's brand new Speaker of the House, his first interview. Mr. Speaker, good to see you, sir.
Thanks, Sean. Welcome to Capitol Hill.
All right, 2 weeks ago, did you think, have you gotten used to the word speaker yet?
I haven't, Sean. I've been in the job about 48 hours now, and it's kind of surreal, to be honest. I just want to say at the outset here, God be with the law enforcement officers that are handling that situation in Maine. Our prayers have been with the families of that tragedy. Everyone here in the House was dialed in on that all day, and it's really something. So just address that at the front end. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention it.
On October 26th, the day after Mike Johnson was elected Speaker of the House, an interview by Sean Hannity of Fox News aired. In his remarks about support for Israel, support for Ukraine, and his Christian faith, many of you have seen the YouTubers who have questioned. Mike Johnson is a RINO, or MAGA. I watched this interview and felt very uncomfortable with the commentary. I think it would be best for everyone to watch this interview without cutting it out. It is a long interview, so that will be another video. Many of you may think that we should not give any support to the inhumane acts being committed in Israel. I think it is the natural right thing for a person to do. I am sure you all agree. However, I think we need to have a separate discussion on that issue, and whether it is a RINO or not. There are others who claim that Mike Johnson is a RINO. What is the basis for this? I don't believe it is based on mere impression. In conclusion, Mike Johnson is not a RINO. I will tell you this based on the facts. He may have been a surprise as a candidate for Speaker of the House, but President Trump's confidence in him is huge. There are few people who support President Trump, who would say they have never heard of Mike Johnson's name at all. From the media, Mike Johnson, after serving as Trump's defense lawyer in the alleged Ukraine impeachment trial, he was seen as a close confidant of President Trump, as he rode on Air Force One with presidential aide Mark Meadows and others. In fact, the leftist media attacks on Mike Johnson have been intense since the day he was elected Speaker.
Didn't take them long. The liberal media now launching their first jabs at the newly minted House Speaker, Mike Johnson. But many of those attacks appear to center on his Christian faith. They are particularly perturbed by that. Just listen to this shocking comparison from Bill Maher.
And I was reading about this horrible shooting in Maine. And I heard, we don't know much about the guy yet, but apparently he heard voices. And I thought, is he that different than Mike Johnson? Really? I mean, degree, yes, but it's thinner than you think.
Unbelievable. Now, you'd expect that from Bill Maher, but it's a little more surprising when the former White House press secretary, Jen Psaki, says this.
The Bible doesn't just inform his worldview, it is his worldview. In fact, during his first speech in his new job, Johnson suggested that his election as Speaker was an act of God. Talk about a bit of a humble brag there. His views on policy are essentially what you'd expect from a religious fundamentalist. They're more divisive than they are divine.
A religious fundamentalist. Tell us how you really feel.
The title of this article is, Far-Right MAGA Theocrats, Most Dangerous Threat to America. Even Mitch McConnell is trying to push back against Mike Johnson, and the MAGA wing of the GOP. It isn't working. However, before it was updated, the title was this. MAGA and Christian nationalism, bigger threat to America than Hamas could ever be. Even Mitch McConnell is trying to push back against Mike Johnson, and the MAGA lunatics. It isn't working. As Kayleigh McEnany, who was a spokesperson for the Trump administration, says, the attacks on Mike Johnson are notably about faith. It became especially intense from the first interview. The words that were featured on YouTube in Japan were these.
I am a Bible-believing Christian. Someone asked me today in the media, they said, it's curious, people are curious, what does Mike Johnson think about any issue under the sun? I said, well, go pick up a Bible off your shelf and read it. That's my worldview. That's what I believe.
This word is superimposed on the budget for support of Israel, which continues to commit atrocities against Gaza. And does this person really know the Bible? Sean Hannity's question that elicited this answer was this.
Already, the press, the left have come at you and come at you hard. Specifically, I'll give you two big issues. One on the issue, you once worked for the Alliance Defense Fund, a Christian advocacy group, and comments you had made both in writing and advocacy for this group about homosexuality, calling it sinful, destructive, and not supporting gay marriage. quote, no clear right to sodomy in the Constitution. You have been getting hammered on this.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you about it. I want to know exactly, where you stand. Some of these comments were 15 years ago.
I don't even remember some of them. I was a litigator that was called upon to defend the state marriage amendments. If you remember back in the early 2000s, I think it was over 35 states, somewhere in that number, that the people went to the ballot in their respective states and they amended their state constitutions to say marriage is one man, one woman. Well, I was a religious liberty defense lawyer and I was called to go in and defend those cases in the courts. Let me state this very clearly, and there's been questions about this. Let me say where I am. Anybody that knows me will tell you this is true. I am a rule of law guy. I made a career defending the rule of law. I respect the rule of law. When the Supreme Court issued the Obergefell opinion, that became the law of the land, okay? I respect the rule of law, but I also genuinely love all people, regardless of their lifestyle choices. This is not about the people themselves. I am a Bible-believing Christian. Someone asked me today in the media, they said, it's curious, people are curious, what does Mike Johnson think about any issue under the sun? I said, well, go pick up a Bible off your shelf and read it. That's my worldview. That's what I believe. And so
That's
I make
your
no
personal
apology.
worldview.
It's my personal worldview. But here's the thing. Everybody comes to the House of Representatives with deep personal convictions. But all of our personal convictions are not going to become law. This is a big body of people. There's 435 members in the House. You have to argue and find consensus and all of that. So I have no agenda other than what's best for the American people and to defend the rule of law, and that's what we're doing.
Unfortunately, in Japan, it was not explained as he said. Is he really a religious fundamentalist? There are other attacks from the media. House Speaker Mike Johnson played a key role in efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Johnson, who was elected House Speaker Wednesday, led an amicus brief in support of a Texas lawsuit seeking to overturn Joe Biden's 2020 victory in 4 battleground states. Trump shows his influence over Congress and election of Mike Johnson as Speaker. Louisiana Congressman, was staunch of former U.S. President's false claims of election fraud. Mike Johnson helped Trump on January 6, now he's a threat to democracy. Louisiana Congressman known as MAGA Mike, elected House Speaker Wednesday, is staunch Trump supporter and election denier. Mike Johnson's name is always mentioned in investigations and hearings on major events from President Trump's time in office. Russiagate, impeachment trial over Ukraine allegations, pandemic preparedness, and the outcome of the 2020 presidential election, January 6, the issue of withdrawal from Afghanistan, corruption investigations of the Biden father and son, and working toward impeaching Biden.
All right, in questioning today, is the majority investigating any new allegation or issue or fact not already investigated by the House and Senate Intel Committees or the Special Counsel's Office?
Not to the best of my knowledge.
Do you have any more information on any other matter related to either collusion or obstruction that you can offer to this committee that you have not already shared with Congress or the Special Counsel's Office?
I don't believe I have any new information.
In your prior testimony to the Special Counsel, is it true that you answered every question asked of you truthfully and to the best of your ability and your recollection?
To the best of my recollection, I did answer truthfully, yes.
A couple of things just for further clarification. We're afraid that some of this record will be obscured today, so these will just be quick rapid fire. Do you agree there is no evidence the President intended to obstruct justice?
I do.
Do you agree that the President has been harassed politically since the day he took office?
Yes, I do.
Do you agree that the President's supporters have received vastly different treatment than the supporters of Hillary Clinton?
Unequivocally.
You've called this a witch hunt, and I wonder if you'd like to elaborate on that any further.
I think that this fake Russia collusion narrative is the greatest crime committed against the American people in our generation, if not ever. This is a president who was duly elected by the American people, and members of certain bodies refuse to accept those election results. If this were done by a different president to a different party, the same way it was done to Donald Trump, that person would already be thrown out of office and people would be in jail. But when you support Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, there's a different set of rules. I think the American people find it very unfair, and there's been no accountability at the highest levels of the government for the Pfizer abuse applications which transpired, the spying on Americans clearly in violation of the Fourth Amendment, or the lives that were ruined because they simply wanted to support a candidate for President of the United States, and I think it's shameful.
We do as well, and that's a pretty good recitation of some of the issues that are keeping us up at night. Part of the thing that we're greatly concerned about is the American people's distrust now of our institutions. When people begin to doubt that the rule of law actually applies equally, that justice really is blind in this country, then we reach somewhat of a tipping point. It's very difficult to put that genie back in the bottle, and we're concerned. I know the Republicans and the conservatives on this committee are deeply concerned about the eroding faith in our institutions. Members have called for removal based on a myriad of objections against this president. Representative Al Green of Texas filed a resolution in the House for impeachment after Trump called for players kneeling during the national anthem to be fired. I mean, come on. You don't like his political positions? Great, but you can't impeach a president because you don't like him. That's not how this system works. We're in a constitutional republic. There are rules here. There are standards. You don't get to make that decision. The voters in this country do. And we have an election coming up in about 11 months. Let the people decide. Don't put yourselves in their place. You don't have the right to do it. You're not following the proper procedure. You're not doing this the right way. It's a rarely used constitutional device in our history. It's supposed to be. Professor Turley ended this way, and I will too. He said, quote, "Despite my disagreement with many of President Trump's policies and statements, impeachment was never intended to be used as a midterm corrective option for a divisive or unpopular leader," unquote. Look, we get it. You don't like him. That doesn't mean you can banish him from the marketplace. You can't send him out of his businesses and say he can't hold a position of honor or trust. You don't get the right to do that. The people of this country do. We live in a republic. I'm just sick of this. I yield back. Everyone needs to just take a deep breath and remember one thing. In our constitutional system, the Senate has one important job first. This is what the defense team is going to present today and explain very clearly. They have to first answer a threshold question. Before you get to witnesses and documents and all this other stuff, the Senate has to determine whether the articles that were sent over by the House are valid and legitimate on their face. Are these valid articles of impeachment? Abuse of power and obstruction of Congress do not meet the constitutional threshold, and the Senate has to answer that question objectively the right way. When they do, if and when they do, all of the rest of this is a moot point. The House did not do its job. Adam Schiff did not call the witnesses that apparently he thinks he now needed, and it's too late. The House sent over invalid articles, and the Senate, I think, will find that, and it will dispense with a lot of these superfluous questions.
There are not many opportunities to see these congressional hearings and committee activities in Japan. However, the unanimous selection of the House Speaker must be due to the strong support of President Trump and the trust of the Republican members of the House of Representatives. It is true that Mike Johnson has fought alongside President Trump more than we know. Once an influential person speaks out, everyone who trusts that person will think in that direction. The effect on tens or hundreds of thousands of people is enormous. If people prefer flashy speculation to discrete facts, then this channel may have no reason to exist. The issue of Israel is a long one, so I will leave it for another time.
Here with a sneak peek, we begin tonight with the Speaker of the House. Let's give a warm welcome to your new Speaker, Mike Johnson.